So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick information if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you so much for the confirmation, everyone. So my name is Neeraj Keria, and I've been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. Let me quickly introduce Edureka Masterclass community with you all as well. So this community of masterclasses, we started back in 2019, and since then we have been closing into more than 31,000 members so far. And in these masterclasses, we conduct multiple webinars on different topics, including blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and multiple front-end and back-end development technologies. And the best part about these webinars are they are absolutely free of cost, so there are no charges involved here. And these are a really great platform for anyone who is looking to get into the industry vertical by learning the technology that is required. So the main agenda for today's session, we have gathered for our discussion on Node.js, what exactly Node.js is, and here we are going to discuss on how Node.js is useful. So basically, we are going to start with a discussion on Node.js, what exactly it is, the Node.js architecture. Then we are going to discuss on the concepts of Node.js module, the NPM as Node Package Manager, the JSON files, the Node.js basics, the file system, events, the HTTP module, and a small hands-on if the time allows. First of all, if we talk about Node.js and Node.js, for example, if we have heard about Node.js, then we know that it is one of the most prominent and powerful frameworks of JavaScript. So since its release, it has continued to keep its stranglehold on the IT market. So if you talk about what exactly Node.js, and Node.js is a powerful framework developed on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine that compiles JavaScript directly into the native machine code. And it is a lightweight framework used for creating a server-side web application and extends the JavaScript API to offer usual server-side functionalities. And it is generally used for large-scale application development, especially for video streaming sites, single-page applications, and other web applications. Node.js makes use of an event-driven, non-blocking I/O model, which makes it right pick for data-intensive real-time applications. So like any other programming language, Node.js makes use of the packages and modules, and they are libraries that contain various functions that are imported from NPM as a Node package manager into a code and utilized in the programs. Some of the major features that define Node.js again include the being open source. So we know that Node.js is what? Node.js is basically an open source framework. So if we have a list of the features, then the first thing is it is an open source. That means it is an open source framework MIT license that is supported by a huge community. Its community is pretty much active and have contributed to add new capabilities to Node.js applications. And then it is simple and fast. Now, since Node.js is built on Google's Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine, its libraries are capable of fast execution, and it is asynchronous. That means all the libraries of Node.js are asynchronous, which means that Node.js-based servers will never wait for an API to send back the response and move on to the next API. And then it is highly scalable because of the event mechanism. Node.js is highly scalable, and it simply aids the server in a non-blocking response. It is single-threaded. That means with the help of event looping, Node.js is able to follow the single-threaded model, and this lets a single program to handle multiple requests. And then we have no buffering. So one of the major functionalities of Node.js is to be able to follow the single-threaded model, and this lets a single program to handle multiple requests, and that with most amount of flexibility. And then it supports a cross-platform. That means Node.js can be easily built and deployed on various platforms like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So there is no platform dependency. So let's now advance further and see how to deploy the actual code on the browser. But before that, we need to know how we can download and install this in our system. So first of all, we are going to also talk about the Node package manager that we refer as Node NPM. And before that, let's have a short discussion on the Node.js architecture as well, what exactly it is. So here we have the NPM. So we were talking about the NPM Node Package Manager. So NPM, as we know, is basically the main package manager available by Node, through which we can install multiple modules available under the Node environment. And from version 0.6.0 onwards, NPM has been added as a default in the Node installation, and it saves us from the hassle of installing NPM explicitly. So NPM basically helps in two ways. It provides the host online repositories for Node.js packages, which can be easily downloaded and used in our projects without doing them manually, and providing the command line utility in order to install various Node.js packages. Like we have the multiple packages available for React, for Angular. So again, they all are already available under NPM as a Node Package Manager. So now we must be wondering what exactly these modules are and how do they help us in building the Node.js application. So first of all, we can go ahead and discuss on the main core components of Node.js. So first of all, we have Node.js modules. So the modules in Node.js represents various functionalities that are bundled up into a single or multiple JS files. So these modules have a unique context, thus they never interfere nor pollute the scope of other modules. So these modules enable the code reusability and enhances the ease of usage. So Node.js basically provides three types of modules: core modules, local modules, and third-party modules. And now, as discussed, these are main types in terms of core module. Again, we know that Node.js is basically a lightweight framework. So the core module bundles the absolute minimum functionalities. And these modules generally get loaded when the node process starts its execution. And all we need to can do is to simply import these core modules in order to use them into our code. And then we have the local variables, or we can say local modules. So the local modules of Node.js are custom modules that are created locally by user developer in the application. Now, these modules can include various functionalities bundled into distinct files and folders, which can be easily distributed in the Node.js community using NPM. Now, these modules are loaded in a similar way to core modules. So we can define, okay, how exactly we have to create the custom modules within the application, and these are going to be included. And then we have the external modules. So basically we can use third-party or external modules by downloading them via npm. For example, all the modules for React, as in create React, the React module in terms of the React components, in terms of React Redux, and the Express services. So again, these are all different packages available by default. And these modules are generally developed by developers, which are, again, they are free to use. And few of the best external modules are React, Sculpt, Mongoose, Mocha, and etc. So next, before we move on, so next we have, as we discussed, so these are the different core modules, including HTTP, URL, query string, FS, the path, and the util. Then we have the local modules. And then we have services for third-party modules, like we have the npm install, we have the save modules, which are explicitly used in Node, as we had discussed. Next, we have JSON file. So the package.json file in Node.js is the heart of the entire application. It basically manifests file. It is basically the manifest file, which contains the metadata of the project. And thus understanding and working with this file becomes very important to a successful Node project development. And the package.json file generally consists of metadata for the application, which is further categorized into two different categories. Like we have identifying the metadata properties and then writing directly to the file as well. So if you talk about identifying the metadata to properties, then this consists of properties like the project name, current module version, license, or author of the project, etc. Whereas if you talk about writing directly to the file, then we can directly write the necessary information into the package.json file and include it in our project, right? So now we are familiar with the various components of Node.js function. So now we are going to look at how we can go ahead and get started. And here we can see a small description about the JSON file. First of all, we have to define the version. Then we have to define description, which is basically description and purpose of the application. For example, this is going to be a React application for the management of the bank record. So again, this is where the description should go. And then we have to define main. So basically this is going to be the entry point of the application. So this is where we are going to start the application, and then we have to define what? We have to define the script as required, and then we have to define the version of Node and the NPM to use. Then the primary author is specified here. We define the licensing, and then we define the dependencies as in third-party package or modules installed by NPM. And then it goes down to the development dependencies that are used only in the development part of the application. And then we have the bugs URL. So the URL and email with the bugs of the application should be reported as mentioned here. So these are the basics for the file. And then we have Node.js basics. Now, since Node.js is a JavaScript framework, so it uses JavaScript functions or against the syntaxes. So if you want to learn JavaScript, like if you are having a clarity or you can say comfort level welcome with JavaScript, then we are good to go. Because again, in terms of the primitive data types available, we have string, number, boolean, null, undefined, and in terms of non-primitive, we have object, date, and array. So these are the main types of data available under Node. And they all have different use cases. For example, if you talk about variables, so variables are simply the entities that hold values which may vary during the course of a program. And to make a variable in Node.js, we can simply do that by using a reserved keyword declared as var. And we don't have to assign our data type, as the compiler itself is going to pick it up and then it is going to assign it to us. Then we have, after variables, we have all the operators that we can use for performing actions. We can choose any kind of application. So basically in the operators part, we have arithmetic operators, we have assignment operators, conditional, comparison, logical, and bitwise. So arithmetic includes the addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, modulus, increment, or decrement. In terms of assignment, we see equals to, plus equals to, minus equals to, multiply equals to, or divide equals to. And then we can define any condition, as in what kind of data we want. Comparison, for making comparison between two different statements, whether alphabetically or numerically. And then we have logical, where we have AND, OR, and XOR. And then we have bitwise, which is basically and then we have multiple in terms of the multiple place shifters. So these are available, types available. So next we have functions. So functions in Node is basically a block of code that has a name and is written to achieve a particular task. So we need to use a keyword function to create it. And a function is generally a two-step process. First, it defines the function, and the second one is going to invoke it, especially in terms of adding the interactivity. If you want that on click of a button, something should be deployed, then we can deploy it. All right, so this is what we have to define. And next is we can, okay, first of all, let me just guide you on how we can download and install Node.js into our environment. So here we can go ahead and type in as Node.js download. And this is going to download Node.js in our system. And then based on the platform, whichever we are running, we can choose the right platform. And then this is going to get downloaded accordingly. So based on the platform, whether we are running on Mac OS or Windows or Linux environment, we can go ahead and download the package. And once we download the package, we have to install it just like our regular software. And just to cross-check that it has been properly installed or not, we can use a command prompt. So here under the command prompt, we have to type in node and then space and then version. If node has been properly installed, we would be able to see the version of node returned to us as 12.18.2. So once we are able to see the version of node, then we can go ahead and set up the entire Node.js application for us to get started with. So once we are done, then we can go ahead and create a one folder as well in which we want to work. So let's say here we're going to find the folder name as suppose node app. So we already have a folder by the name of node app. Just let's cross check if we do have anything already available in node app. So here under the users folder, we have node app. All right, so here we already have a default Docker file and package.json already created. So for working on this Node app, we can do one thing. We can simply erase these files for now. We can delete them, and then we can go ahead and initialize a new .docker here, but again, a new instance of the Node.js application so that we can get started. So once we have configured this, then we are going to start our deployment process. So first of all, to initialize Node in this folder here, we can simply type in command as npm and init. So init stands for initialize. So this is going to initialize an empty npm package manager within this particular folder. So here we have to define the package name. It can be any package name. For example, let's say here we want to call it as Node app itself, Node app, as Node app. And then we can define the version as 1 and the description for it. Then we are going to find the entry point is going to be index.js file. If you want to change it, then we can define that. The test command is what we can want to keep it as none. In terms if we want to link this up with any of the repository where we may have the code coming in from different sources, then that is what we can define under Git repository. And then again, we can define the keywords that you want to use for this one, the author of the application, the licensing part, and then this is what is going to be generated. If we are okay with it, then we can simply make any details. We can request for any number of changes if required. And once we are done, we can clear the screen as well. So if we go back in the folder, we would be able to see a simple package.json file has been defined. And again, this is going to be the default package.json file that we are going to work with. And then we can use any other web frameworks. For example, we can also go ahead and install Angular. We can go ahead and install Node.js, and then we can deploy the entire application on top of it accordingly. And we can also go ahead and install multiple other libraries, or we can say other frameworks as well. For example, we want to install Angular, then we can use the command as Angular as the Angular CLI, and then Angular is going to be installed and configured. If we're looking for React, then again we have commands for installation of React as well. For example, we want to use React. So here, first of all, to install any of the packages, we can type in npm, which stands for Node Package Manager, and then we can define the name of the package. Suppose we want to install, let's say, create React app, which simply go ahead and deploys the React application, React library. We simply downloads and configures React library. And then based on that, the React application is going to be triggered here. So for example, let's say we want to install this library. We can run this command here. So there are two different libraries available here. Either we can run this by using the npm or we can run this by using the npx as well. And this is going to download the entire package and then it is going to install it. And let's say once we are done, then we can run the statement as npx from same node package install. And then here we can define create React app and whatever name we want to give. So basically here we don't have to do anything manually. We have defined. Okay, we simply missed the name. So here we are going to use npx create React app and we define the name suppose as React app 1. So this is going to be the name of the package. For example, we want to configure React app 1, then by this name, the React application is going to be deployed, which is going to be automatically fetched from npx as well. So this React, React DOM, React scripts, again, these are all libraries available under Node.js, and then we can get started. Same thing we do with the other components. So we may wait for a couple of minutes for this one to be configured properly. And see, maybe we want to configure, let's say, Angular with Node on top of Node. We want to configure React on top of Node, then we can do that. So as you can see, once the package has been configured, so we can simply switch to the package. For example, here we can switch to the folder in which we had deployed the React library that we have configured by using Node. And here we can type in as npm and then start. So Node package, Node service is going to start by using the library that we have configured from React. And again, React, as you know, will be running on top of Node.js framework as a part of setup. So this is going to trigger the server, which is going to be opened up in the browser. And as you can see here, since we have configured the package, so now this entire React library is currently running on top of Node.js. Now remember, React is not a framework, it's a library. And we can also integrate React with some other libraries as well, like we have Angular or we have Bootstrap, so we can integrate that with these frameworks to deploy a completely web-based application. Thank you so much for joining, guys, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.